Hi, this is Casey.
Brooke.
Haley.
And we are going to outline Chapter 3, which is the deaf celebration of separate culture. And so today we're just going to talk about Martha's Vineyard, Alexander Graham Bell, the resurgence of ASL, and then Gallaudet University, which was one of the first schools created for teaching deaf and blind students. So we're going to start with Brooke, who's going to talk about Martha's Vineyard.
All right, Martha's Vineyard was a silent island off the coast of Massachusetts that became a deaf utopia after a man, Jonathan Lambert, with a recessive gene for deafness, settled on the island in 1694. Due to the frequent intermarriage, villagers had a high population of deaf people. For over 250 years, deafness was not considered an abnormality like it was on the mainland, but was commonplace. Everyone on the island was bilingual, able to speak English and sign language. Now moving on to Alexander Graham Bell. While he is known for his creating the telephone and having the patent for it, he proved to be a disaster for the deaf community when he decided to enter it. Now, this was during the Victorian age where oralism, which is the speaking despite being deaf, served very well in the conformist society that ruled the Victorians. Sign language was considered to be the devil speaking as speech was God-given. It was what separated man from beasts. The problem was that very few deaf people ever fully mastered oralism, and it only worked with people who enunciated their words well. The slapdown on ASL would cause education performance to fall. While Bell was thought to be an advocate for the deaf community, what was hidden behind his motives was his belief in eugenics. Defective was how he described deaf people, and he thought that the only way to get rid of the perverse nature of them was to limit their interaction and keep them far away from each other, as shown by his continued urgency to use oralism instead of sign language. Now, moving on to the resurgence of ASL, this was a couple hundred years after Alexander Graham Bell, and it wasn't until the work of William Stoke that argued that ASL was a complex and three-dimensional language that ASL began rising in the preferred method to teach students and for them to speak it in class and out of class without looking like an outsider. Today, people of the deaf community are taking back their lost language again that has been denied for them for hundreds of years. Now moving on to Gallaudet University.
In 1988, students and young alumni from Gallaudet University decided to start a protest to battle the sting of prejudice and discrimination in the hearing world. Once the old president resigned, it was time for a new president. There were three candidates: Elizabeth Sinzer, a hearing candidate, Harvey Corson, who was deaf since birth, and Irving King Jordan, another deaf candidate, who was also Gallaudet's Dean of College of Arts and Sciences. Despite what the student body wanted, Elizabeth Sinzer was chosen as the new president. The students were filled with anger, shouting and signing, "Deaf president now." This was when the protests began. Students and alumni were very serious about the request for a deaf president. Students closed down the school by parking cars in front of the entrances and protesting on streets. This got the attention of both the school and national press. The students took this cause to Congress, which drew many politicians to get involved. This was the last straw for Elizabeth. It became clear to her that she would not win this battle, so she resigned. Irving King Jordan, Gallaudet's Dean of College of Arts and Sciences, then became the new president after the members of Gallaudet's Board of Trustees decided that they would give the students what they were seeking and give them a deaf president. This protest gave voice to disability rights movements of all sorts, but specifically for the deaf, because for them, deafness is not a disability, but a culture, like being Jewish, Irish, or Navajo.
So many people with disabilities don't feel accepted by their peers. So many people with disabilities enjoy bonds that they made with other people with disabilities. Judy Heumann told us about many camps for disabled people that she went to during the summers. Many people who are blind, deaf, or had other physical disabilities and mental retardation went to these camps. And people were able to share their feelings and see that people with the same disabilities as them felt the same way. And so, for example, many people with polio were told that they shouldn't dance, and they danced at these camps, and they danced so well that they felt good about themselves, says Judy Heumann. At these camps, they felt comfortable and self-confident about being disabled. So that was our Chapter 3, the Deaf Celebration of Separate Culture.